Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Can we stay standing for just 1 minute? Lord, we thank you for everything we accomplished in 2022 for the people. We ask you, Lord God, to lead and guide this meeting and this board. This we pray to our Heavenly Father. Amen.
Amen.
All right. Roll call.
Davison,
Here.
Petrimo,
Here.
Class. Here. DeShano. Here. Campbell.
Here.
Any questions about the minutes for December 12th meeting?
Make the motion.
Yeah, we can do it one at a time. I'll make a motion then to approve December 12th minutes.
I'll second it.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion carried. And then we have the minutes from the bill paying on the 27th.
The comment that I would have is the roll call of officers is not complete per the Open Meetings Act.
So it should have said, DeShano absent.
Or excused, since it was scheduled that way.
I would say it should have said excuse because it was a midday meeting and originally they were to be evening meetings.
Is that the only change? I'll make a motion then to approve the December 27th minutes with the change in the roll call area.
I'll second it.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Treasurer's report. Any questions on the treasurer's report?
I'll make a motion to accept the report.
I'll second it. We'll do that one as a roll call.
Petrimo,
Yes.
Class. Yes. DeShano. Yes. Campbell.
Yes.
Davison.
Yes. The fire department report. So before we get started with that, I want to make sure that everybody understands that I sent these to you, and the other two is in my mailbox if you want to look at them. We have a yearly report and a quarterly report, and then this is the month report for December.
We're not doing a heck of a lot. We got a free vehicle. The guy's been running around and getting it ready and go whenever and stuff. So I figure if it breaks, we just get it back to the state. But it'll be good for running less wear and tear in our vehicles and stuff. So we ditched the one bid on top mount pump or pumper engine, whatever you want to call it, and we're looking at a different one. And the guy finally sent the bid through, and with all the specs, and so we'll be looking at that. Right now, I'm talking to some of the manufacturers, unless we find something in the pipeline, which would be 200 or so days, you're looking at 880 days to have a custom built. It's crazy. But everybody's buying, everybody's doing, so that's what we're looking at there. Kurt, I'll let him speak for himself. He's been doing a bunch of inspections and yeah.
We've been starting to slowly uptake on the fire safety inspections and the pre-plans and some home safety visits and awareness with that, trying to build up that fire prevention in the community. Also, working currently with Station 1516 for the open grant, right now, the period that's open for a platform.
So you need to tell us who Station 15.
Oh, I'm
and
sorry,
16 is.
our neighbors to the north, Pinconning Fraser. So it'll be a jointly owned, financed through AFG. I think we're at 75 foot, or is it gonna be 85? Or is that still to be determined?
Yeah, it's gonna have to be determined on that, because issues with 75 or up to 100, so.
So, right, so we're probably going to, hopefully, get that AFG grant. It's kind of wonky because we're actually doing the 2022 grant the first month into 2023, so sometimes the government works in mysterious ways at the federal level. We've also received, a DNR matching funds grant for equipment as well.
Nice little grant, we actually won one.
I'm happy.
Would that truck be kept in Fraser or in Pinconning?
There is the determination that will have to be made later on, because we must have access to it in order to do this.
Correct.
If it does come through, and Dave's a lot closer, he's been working on this for years. But if it does come through, then it's going to be, with Mr. Evil and, you people and them up there, as to writing something up to show that joint, ownership of that. But access is gonna be the big thing. And, we would prefer to have it at Fraser so that we've got a more immediate access to it and stuff, so.
Middle ground.
Well, and the reason that would work is for responses. If we have a commercial box alarm, which we box alarm initial response commonly, if you'll notice in that report, there's a lot of auto aids. Those auto aids are an automatic dispatch with us, and we automatically have 15, Pinconning Fraser coming with us on structures. That helps us with our ISO rating, having those box cards. So by having that truck in Fraser Township, personally, I'd like to see it, I'd like to have it in our
Right.
station, but I don't see that happening. But with that in Fraser, if we have a box alarm, we can respond people to grab that truck as the second due, or our engine as the second due, and somebody grab that truck on that initial alarm. If the alarm's in our area, then they can grab that truck as well coming into our area. It's granted, it's 3 miles out of the township, but for location to serve everybody the best for both communities, having it in Fraser is the best place for it.
It would just improve our status as far as ISO is concerned.
ISO.
Okay,
That would-
we've already got that established with them with the automatic dispatch,
And
and having that is just gonna improve that factor.
that upgraded stick would definitely help us. I'm sorry, the upgraded aerial tower fire truck would definitely help with our ISO stick. Sorry, we call them a stick.
I'm thinking there should be room in Fraser's fire barn, considering there's nothing there.
Well,
Well,
and looking at the
What is
room
it?
that they have up there, and he knows what we have down here and stuff, we can only go to a certain length. And most of your trucks are 40-45 feet, so we've got more than enough room here, there, or wherever we wanna put it. But it's going to be a cooperative effort, no matter what comes down with this, so. The last thing we want is to have it in county, but.
Correct. It's too far away.
it would,
If that's the case, we'd almost need to try to raise more money and do it here.
if it was in Pinconning, honestly, on anything in the south end of our township, the box alarm for a stick would have to go to Station 7. It would be, I'm sorry, Bangor Township
Bangor,
or
Monitor, or somebody.
well, Monitor
Yeah.
or Bangor
Correct.
or the city, because it's just too far. I mean,
Time and distance.
And I would think, based on the number of calls you guys have and the location of those calls, that would be something that would be able to be mapped out with your software to actually make that case.
I
mean,
Yeah.
it would make sense to sit down some data and say, listen, here's where we're going all the
Mhm.
time. So that has to be figured in and,
Oh, yeah, we're
placement.
tracking, more and more, and, the agreements right now are primarily for Fraser stuff like that. Occasionally we'll go north of that, but, primarily it's Fraser Township. You know, if they're not going to respond and they know that or whatever, then it's an automatic dispatch and we go. So,
Okay, so the question I would have then, and, this may be a little bit early, I understand, but, there would obviously have to be a percentage agreement as far as ownership, and I assume that would also
50-50.
translate between us and Pinconning, so Fraser could have it there, but they would have no ownership stake and no
No,
responsibility
it's the
for
same
it?
fire board.
Because it's,
Fire,
I apologize.
they have a
I
fire
apologize.
authority, so it would be
Yes, so
owned
it
by
would be
that
the
fire
two.
authority and
Okay,
us.
so it would be a 50-50 split for all expenses, as far as any repairs, right across the board?
Testing, everything, yes, insurance or whatever, and that's where the agreement would have to come in.
Absolutely.
We have an agreement with the one that we have now, but that's, fairly weak, and that was just drawn up between Dave and I. Basically because it was a free truck, we got it from Dow, and, this one we're trying to get from the federal government, and we're getting into a whole different ballgame, so. And you guys own this thing, so, okay, you know.
So to backtrack to the DNR vehicle, when we were talking about this earlier, the question that came up was, what kind of existing agreement is there? Because my understanding, from what I was told, was that it was given to us to use, and then you made a comment about it as well, that when we're done with it, we'll just return it. So obviously, there's not a change of ownership that took place. So there has to be some kind of MOU or other agreement that is in place for us to have
I
that
don't do good with letters, so tell the people what MOU is.
memorandum of understanding.
Now, here's where I'm gonna get in trouble, because you're gonna get me on letters, because I wrote the proposal for that, and I know I'm gonna butcher the abbreviation and the acronym for it, so I'm not even gonna attempt it. But basically, it's a federal state DNR excess property surplus vehicle that it still bears the state plate on it. We just have to add it to our insurance and use it. Obviously, we buy the gas, and if it needs a tire or a starter and we choose to put it in, and then when we're finished with it, it's returned. I know of one gentleman who's a chief on another department. Actually, it's the department that we sold the old engine to, Beaver Creek Township. The chief's a friend of mine. He's been using one of those vehicles very similar to ours now for, I think Doug's had it 3 years, from the state as his chief's vehicle, administrative vehicle, sending people to training in schools. Because currently, if we send somebody to a training or a school or a meeting, they take the brush truck or they'll take rescue. Well, that's obviously, it's necessary to get our people to those, but this gives us something without shorting us a vehicle.
Correct.
And if we get a request for tanker manpower, currently we're rolling an engine and a tanker. So this would make it so that we could take that vehicle for the manpower and take the tanker for the other equipment and keep 2 engines in the community. It gives us more flexibility, and hopefully I'm hoping it's cost effective.
Well, and the running around, and if you've got to run to get something or errand or whatever, and take that vehicle.
I understand the
Yeah,
usefulness. I was just
Yeah.
interested in the contractual agreement that's in place to make sure that all the ducks are in a row and that we're not gonna end up having an interesting situation should something occur.
You can, do I wanna tell the story of the first vehicle or not? No, okay, never mind. They are great, they are really good to work with on this. I know from personal experience.
Yeah, leave it at that.
Okay.
We do have a couple of trainings we'll be using the hall for the next couple of weekends, so.
And it's on the board, on the book, so you don't have to have a
It's
wedding
all
at the
on the
same
book,
time.
and they'll be there 3 solid days each weekend, so.
Okay.
We'll be around, and hopefully a bunch of our guys will be around, but we'll see, so. About all I got.
All right. I don't think there's a recreational report.
Have a little bit of information. So the official stories, there's no, additional information at this point concerning additional funding that's been requested. We talked about that at the last meeting through the, through Bay County. Couple of requests that have come in through this project is, to openly communicate when there are going to be budget meetings for us. I understand that Fraser has, had some conversation regarding, creating budget items for this project. And a specific request was made to look into a shared agreement as far as the expense of redoing that parking lot out there, as there's gonna be a lot of, equipment rolling when they decide to start doing that seawall. And, it's in pretty bad shape already, and heavy equipment is probably going to pretty much serve to pulverize what is out there. So, just requested that there's conversation happening as we enter budget talks to actually repave the entire parking lot.
Which would be a 50-50 agreement between Fraser and us.
Okay. There's no hall report. We did hold a blood drive here. We didn't. Western High School student did for Red Cross on the 27th. And I'm under the impression she got like 19 people to donate. One short of her goal, but
It's good.
all right. The bills. I would make a motion to approve the bills.
And I would second that.
That would be a roll call vote.
Class? Yes. DeShano?
Yes.
Campbell?
Yes.
Davison?
Yes.
Petremo?
Yes.
And then I would also make a motion then to approve the payroll.
And I would second it.
DeShano?
Yes.
Campbell?
Yes.
Davison?
Yes.
Petremo?
Yes.
Class?
Then we have the building report. Any questions about the building report?
You have to accept that, or?
I was just gonna accept communications.
Communication, okay.
We have the zoning report. So Mara Drive looks like we're getting some bids on getting somebody over there to clean it up. The one on Weathers Road, we're not in court until the 7th of February. I don't anticipate a lot of problems, cause this is about the third time we've been in court to clean that place up over the years. Any other questions about those?
Are we expecting to have bids next meeting for Mara Drive?
I would think so. We got a guy that has cleaned up a couple things for us, and he's gonna go over. It's gonna be a little bit different bid because it seems like there's more and more vehicles sitting over there,
Sure are.
Yeah,
so.
and does that camper that's hid behind the shrub on the corner over, is that classified as the one we're going after, or is that technically on his sister's property?
I think it's technically on his sister's property.
And the roadway,
Yeah.
road right away.
So I'll make a motion to approve the communications.
I'll second.
And all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Public input. Anybody want to speak under public input? We got 3 minutes. All right.
Been a while since I've seen that, so. Eric Cook, 645 East Beaver Road. Going over the agenda 13B on ethics, is this the same thing as the ethics ordinance you had last month that was on the agenda? I'm assuming, 'cause
Similar.
okay, yeah,
There
'cause
was some more information put on it, and then we got extra information.
so, yeah, 'cause I went on the website and I didn't see any kind of draft ordinance. Just the word ordinance caught my attention, so I just did a Google search of state of Michigan ethics ordinance, and first thing popped up was this thing from Dana Nessel. It was like 15 pages. Is that the same thing that you guys are looking at? I wanna make sure I'm on the same page. Yep, that's it. Yeah, it's like 15 pages. Anyways, long story short, I think it's a good idea. It's similar, the reason being is similar to what we had in the military. We used to have like a civil rights board, we had an ethics board, stuff like that. The reason I think the township should have something like that, excuse me, is it'll almost act kind of like a pre-filter for you, make your job a little bit easier township-wide. So I'm going to pick on Charles for a second here. So you being a pastor, I'm actually an ordained minister as well. So like say for instance, I had a contract to do a wedding here at the township hall, and then again, I'm just picking on you, not saying you would do this, but
Go for it.
if Charles said, oh hey, because he's a township official, he knew that there was going to be a wedding here, he called and said, hey, I can do it a little bit cheaper. Eric's just an online ordained minister. I'm the real deal. So I lose a job and stuff like that. I could, instead of me coming here once a month saying, Charles, you stole work from me using your position, blah, 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 and then all four of you are like, what the hell are you talking about, Eric? If you had like a board, sort of like the citizen advisory board that you have for the wind turbines, don't get paid or anything like that, just volunteers. So basically, I could come to Greg and say, Greg, I got a complaint against Charles because he used his position to steal work from me. You could say, okay, take my complaint, send it to the board, volunteers, whoever wants to do it. They could review it, they could be like, this is BS, throw it away, and then you can do that. Or they say, yeah, we see something this should have board action on, and you guys can do for, or the board could say, this needs to go to legal review, and then their hands off, and then you look at it. I think it would foster a, kind of like a more transparent, and it'll take a lot of pressure off of you guys so you're not blindsided if someone wanted to complain, not just against anybody up here, but any township employee. So, like I said, I'm just going off my experience in the military. We had something similar with that, and when I saw that, it just kind of popped out to me. I thought, hey, that's kind of cool if it's what they want to do. So, anyways, that's all I got. Thank you.
Anybody else? All right, hearing none.
I do have a question.
Oh,
Kelly Campbell, 525 South Huron Road.
it's not a question and answer period, so it's comments, public input. So,
Maybe I'm in the wrong spot then.
well, there's only one.
Meetings. When I was here before, everybody voted on having meetings at 7 o'clock because most everybody here works. Why are meetings at 2, 3, 4 o'clock when people can attend to them?
It's not a question and answer period.
No.
Our meeting here tonight was at 7 o'clock. We came in at 6 to review the bills rather
Correct.
than go through the bills at the meeting,
But other meetings are held at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and other meetings are at 4 o'clock when people can't attend.
it was a bill meeting on the 27th,
I don't believe that's the only meeting.
so it's not a question and answer period, so. Thank you. Anybody else? All
So
right,
when is question and answer time then? Like we just come in when we're all working, we stop in and see you and ask her questions?
you can text me, you can email me, you can call me.
Okay.
Unfinished business, I don't think we have any. The first thing here under new business, this is the motel on M13 who is turning the rooms apparently into apartments. And at the beginning, she had a trash bin there that she was paying directly to Republic. Well, she got rid of the trash bin, and now she has the small bins for herself. And of course, we have to put it on her taxes for the small bins. I would like to she's already working on one apartment, and it looks like there might be 2 or 3 in there, so I would like to say that when we make a motion to put this on her taxes, we can kinda do this as one lump and say that as she requests more bins, we put more bins on her taxes. Because it sounds like she's gonna request a bin for every person individually.
I think it's a shipwreck.
Like that.
You know, it's a shipwreck. It's a pink building, to make it clear which one it is, because Melissa corrected me, because I was wrong. It was not the one by River Road, it's the one, just south of Wetters
Judy's
Road,
old place.
across the street from Mulberry's.
1287 South
And-
Huron.
And if she's gonna do remodeling and all that, and we're gonna put a small dumpster there,
No, just the regular bins.
Yeah.
When it's a small dumpster, she pays them directly.
well, that's kind of the problem though, cause if she's gonna redo this, as you've stated, and she's gonna put multiple places, it's more economical to have the dumpster, and if she's redoing it, then she should request that the planning commission look in. I mean, the planning commission, yes, sir, I see a
Is it-
fingerprint down there.
Is it a changed use?
Yeah.
That's what it sounds like.
Regardless of economics, if this is a change in use, which motel to apartments would typically, I'd have to see your actual ordinance, but most of the time, that'd be a change in use, subject to site plan review. And I'm not aware of a planning commission that would allow an apartment complex to not have a dumpster.
Exactly.
Because those individual bins can disappear relatively quickly, but that would be a decision for the planning commission and subsequently this board to make. So I don't know if this is something that can be decided right now because it might be a violation of the
This is
ordinance.
only speaking of her not having a dumpster anymore, and now she has bins, and to pay for the bins, we have to add it to the taxes. And this is just for us to approve to add her getting regular bins on the taxes. So I guess we only have to add the one, cause that's the only one she's got at this particular moment. So that's all we're talking about right now.
So she lives in one of the units?
Yes.
And she's renting one of them.
Well-
She owns the place, so she lives in one.
She lives in one,
Okay.
and she hasn't started, I don't think, on renting another
One's
one.
listed.
It's listed for rent, well, she's going to, but what my thoughts was, as she asks for more bins, rather than, because we can only add it to the taxes about, like, soon. So she pays it when she comes in to pay her December bill. So we could add this for her to pay it on her December bill, and then the next one we could add, but it wouldn't be paid till the December bill next year, even though they're using it for 8 months.
Well, it's
But
just
that's
that-
all this is because she got rid of the dumpster, and she's got bins, to put this on her taxes for the bins that she has.
But it's changed use of the property.
No, she's lived there, I'm thinking she's lived there a long time.
Those have been one-bedroom apartments for quite some time.
So if someone had an apartment building and there's half a
Well,
dozen,
apartment building is one thing, but you guys keep talking motel. It hasn't been a motel for a number of
40 years.
So, I'm not sure you even got a change of occupancy, but.
They were like
it'd be something to look at.
short-term rental, it's
Not
like
really.
by the,
no, they're not, no.
That's interesting, okay.
But if it's all these apartments in there, the dumpster,
It's not a primary residence, so, I mean, the bins are designed for primary residences, aren't they?
Yeah, but she lives there, she owns it, and she lives there.
So does she have a PRE exemption or just 1/16? So then I guess,
technically then she could have one unit. She could have one dumpster,
11%, you're right. So she could have one.
and we don't have to vote on it
Some
because
reserve.
she's already got the
She's
PRE,
entitled to
one dumpster.
have one and have it be put on, so you're right, you don't have to vote on this.
It's not a vote.
But to try to get out ahead of the issue, if she says, well, now I just leased unit 2, now I need another bin, then the answer should, from the building department, should be sorry, this isn't residential anymore. And this isn't PRE, which the contract we have is supposed to be for residential related things and principal residences. So then you'd have to say, well, now that you have another person living there, and I know what you're saying, well, it's not a change in use, but even though she's been doing that for a while, the intended use, it's a change in intended use, is probably the best way to say it. Because the last time that was reevaluated, I think was evaluated as a motel. It's just the actual use has been inconsistent with motel activities.
So we don't need to,
Well,
because she,
actually, I can't
Oh, to add
adjust
it to the
the
rules.
tax without the board
Yeah.
approval.
so we need to vote on to add it to the tax roll, so she pays tax on the bin. Otherwise, the rest of us who have trash is
Are
gonna pay
paying her
for her
bill.
trash, yes.
So
we
the
have-
vote is to add it to the roll, not to approve this concept.
Right.
Because she hasn't.
Right, I'm only
She
asking
has a
to
matter
put
of
it on the tax roll, that she has a regular bin like the rest of us.
She gets 1 unit,
Yeah.
1 unit, 1 bin.
And would there be any conversation with her about when she leases another unit and then decides she wants another bin? Because clearly she thinks this is how she's gonna
Well,
do it, get a bin for
we
each
would
unit.
tell Republic that when she requests a second one, that she's gotta come through us. They won't give it to her.
And it might be worth referring her contact information to the zoning administrator to kind of get out ahead of it as well, so it doesn't come back and bite you guys.
Cause she could rent it as soon as the next month. There's a shortage of housing and
And yeah, I think, the fire marshal has something to say about this also. So,
All right, well, I'd like to make a motion that we add her tax bin to the tax rolls, so she gets charged for her tax bin at this particular moment.
I'll second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion carried. All right. Ethics. So at the beginning, a month ago or two, we received, the stuff from Dana Nessel to work on a, supposed ordinance. And we asked for more information, and Mr. Campbell did bring us in some, extra information here. But in the meantime, we've, discovered that we have and part of the information that Mr. Campbell brought in was principles of township governance excellence.
because I believe if we can go down this road that's more explanatory as to what each of our responsibilities are, it would behoove us to look at adopting this. I know I was given another item that stated this is hanging on our wall, but this explains it. It's an 11-page document. Sorry, I don't have one for everybody, but it gives us an idea that there is a board of code of conduct, what the principles are, the general rules, who the participants actually are, rules for chairing a meeting, no-nos for what the chair should or should not do, and the township board's responsibilities, clear cut, so nobody's stepping on somebody else. And then the duties of the board meeting moderator, with the board commitment to values and vision, and keeping in mind that we have we are civic trusteeship, and once again, board code of conduct, and what our responsibilities actually are, how the agendas are, order of business, and consent agendas. It's totally, and township policy compliance monitoring, and unfinished business versus new business, because some of the stuff we do should actually be in unfinished, like ethics, because we started talking about it last month. And governance would have fallen under this month. and, the additional standard of conduct for public officers and employees Act of 196 of 1973. That would have been underneath an option to look at compared to the model ethics ordinance. The ordinance would be the best, but if we had a stalemate and we couldn't pass the ordinance, then I think we should vote whether or not to accept Act 196 of 1973.
So I'm gonna just jump in here.
Mhm.
You know, the Act of 1973, I mean, that's already, those are
50 years old.
MCLs. Well, no, I mean, those are the laws that have been adopted by the state that we're supposed to function under. We don't need to adopt those, we're supposed to be working in compliance with those. What the model ethics ordinance does is not only expand on those and exactly, you know, how that plays out in day-to-day functioning as a board, but it also, as Eric mentioned, it also allows us to have citizens involved in what citizens think is actually ethical behavior for the board to be engaged in. So that citizens, who are our bosses, actually can have a say in whether or not what's being done is ethical, is in compliance with state law. I think that's important to remember who our bosses are.
Well, I think if we are looking at moving forward with an ordinance, it's something that needs to be actually tabled from this meeting, and we need to go to private meetings till we decide what we want the ordinance to have in it. So I strongly suggest that we would table that part of it, and we would start having meetings to develop an ordinance
Well,
with the paperwork that we have, and decide what we want on it. When it comes to the principles of governance, which was signed in 2013 and then again in 2017, I suggest that we do that so we're working under something to comply with what you guys are trying to do, and then we can either replace this or add to it then with a full-blown ordinance when we get to it.
The problem with that in theory is, that is hung on the wall, and it's nothing more, it's been nothing more than a piece of paper. That's all it's been, where with the principles of township governance, it is very point specific, and it does talk specifically about compliance monitoring, which is right down the ballpark of what the model ethics ordinance calls to have a 5-member board, that if there's a problem, then those people say, well, wait a minute. Charlie, what happened? And then they get done talking to me, and I'm gonna pick on another person, and they're gonna say, Melissa, what happened? And then they're gonna look at the both of it and say, you know, actually, you guys are both saying the same thing, you're using different words. And the whole thing is a mute subject. Or they look at it and they say, I'm gonna pick on a finance. So they look at Melissa and Melissa explains it, and they say, Charlie, you're wrong. Point blank, period. And see, I believe that has value, and I don't have problems with the board saying that. Because in my life, and what I do for a living, I answer to boards. And we do everything we can to work together. And when I see it not working that way, I'm thinking, how can we get there? I would say this would be part 1, and I would say between the standard conduct for officers and employees and the model ethics ordinance, we should have a work session. And the work session should either be 6 PM or 7 PM, but we should have a work session. And upon the starting roll of that work session, and technically, we don't have to put this, as I was just speaking a second ago, we wouldn't have to put the compliance monitoring board together. You could technically say, we want the Democrats to give us a person, the Republicans to give us a person, the Independents to give us a person. That's, it's not us picking the person. I'm not here for my personal agenda. I'm here because I'm a resident in this township, and I want to see us better tomorrow than we were today. That's all.
All right, but you're still talking about the principles of governance.
Correct.
Well,
So
it's,
you're saying this right here should be part one, and then
Well-
we work on the ordinance?
Exactly.
Okay, but
Well-
isn't this the same
Yeah.
thing as what's in the?
Yeah.
It's not quite, because of the problem between here and here is, this is what they suggest for smooth operations of township government, recommended by the Michigan Township Association. Then, when you look at this, this is Michigan compiled law. There are actual laws that this, if you do this, there's a consequence. And if you do that, there's a consequence. So, if we're going to sit down, and currently, we have this. And since I read this, I will take the time to read this, because I want you to understand the significant difference of the two documents. This document says, to maintain the highest standard of tradition of Michigan townships, we embrace these principles to guide our stewardship, deliberation, and constituent services as we commit to safeguard our community's health, safety, and general welfare. We pledge to, 1, insist on the highest standard of ethical conduct by all who act on behalf of the township. 2, bring credit, honor, and dignity to our public office through collegial board deliberation, board deliberations and diligent, appropriate responses to constituent concerns. 3, actively pursue education and knowledge and embrace best practices. 4, treat all persons with dignity, respect, impartiality, without prejudice or any type of discrimination. 5, practice openness and transparency in our decisions and actions. 6, cooperate in all reasonable ways with other governmental entities and consider the impact our decisions may have outside our township borders. 7, communicate with public township issues, challenges, successes, and welcome the active involvement of stakeholders to further the township's well-being. 8, strive for compliance with all state and federal statutory requirements. 9, refuse to participate in any decisions or activities for personal gain at the expense of the best interests of the township. And 10, further the understanding of the obligations and responsibilities of American citizenship, democratic government, and freedom.
Okay, just to add one thing to that, this,
Did I miss something?
this that he just read came from the MTA that the township board looked at as, with a cover letter back in 2013 that spoke of this 11 or 15 pages, I guess I don't know which one this one is.
11.
11 pages, which is also come from the Michigan Township Association, is what we should comply with. So I'm just saying that until we get an ordinance, if we decide to go that way, we could actually put this in place, the principles of governance in place, the way it is right now with our signatures on the bottom of it as us, this board. And maybe only we want to change this is to say that maybe one more line on it, attaching this and doing a new one of these, that it puts this 11 pages attached to that, like this.
I think that this is something that needs further discussion, and I would be happy to make a motion to table this, conditioned upon having a work session scheduled before this meeting adjourns in the evening, so that we can have a conversation about it.
And actually, our stakeholders are sitting right here. It isn't just you and me, every person in this room. And I personally believe that if we're gonna sit down at this table, and we're gonna be on all four sides, and we're gonna negotiate this thing out, if somebody wants to come and sit down and see how their township negotiates, then so do it.
Well, we would also want to have something to present to the township. So I mean, if we're gonna sit and talk about the ordinance, we're gonna talk about a lot of different things to put an ordinance together. So it's not something we're going to vote on as an ordinance. It's something we're gonna put together, so, maybe the first round or two, we would wanna do that before we actually invite the public in to put their input into the ordinance, and then they would have something to look at that we were putting in place. It's similar to the planning commission would have.
I believe I have a motion on the floor, don't I?
Right, it hasn't been seconded yet. You second it? All right, we'll take a roll call vote on that.
Do we have a date?
That's the condition.
If I may,
Yeah,
the issue is it's circular indifference. Without the date, you can't have the motion, without the motion, you can't have the date.
We're prepared.
I mean, would you,
What date do you want? We have the calendar.
well, it's not me, I mean, would you be willing to consider amending your motion or tabling your motion until everybody pulls their calendars out and gets a date, so you can tackle it all in one?
Yeah, I'm open
Fell
to that.
swoop.
I'm open to that.
Because technically, you can't move on to the next one without a
Yeah.
date.
so what are we doing? What are we doing?
Gotta go over the date.
We'll vote this motion down.
Well, actually, you can actually have a roll call vote to see if you wanna vote it down, but you could also come up with a date. And she might amend her motion to say,
Yeah.
table this subject to that date.
I don't know, we need to throw dates out, so we were talking January 19th.
19th, Thursday, 7 PM?
Is that workable?
PC's on the 12th.
Okay.
Thursday. I'd rather do it on a Wednesday.
Yeah, that's not a problem.
Like Wednesday the 18th.
7 PM on Wednesday the 18th.
You?
Yeah, that sounds all right.
And that's to
I got a
work
meeting on
on,
the 25th, but the 18th sounds all right.
So so you're gonna amend your motion, or
I will
I can
amend-
just
I
add the
will-
date?
I will amend my motion to schedule the first work session at 7 PM on Wednesday, January the 18th, for the consideration of the ethics ordinance or principles of, all that.
To table this until
Table
Wednesday
that
18th
until
at
then.
7 o'clock. That way it doesn't close it out.
Okay, gotcha, thank you.
Campbell?
yes.
Do you have a second?
I said.
Oh, we should second since
It's a new motion.
after the amendment.
Okay, sorry.
Wait a minute. Okay. All right, now we go. Campbell,
Yes.
Davidson,
Yes?
Petrol,
Yes.
Class,
Yes.
DeShano.
Yes.
All right. The second bill paying that we have in the township, on the 27th was the last one we had, and I went through all those bills and called all those people, and not one of them there has a problem with us approving bills, because most of them deal with other townships, on the second Monday of the month. So they've all moved our due dates on bills till after the second Monday of the month. In fact, Staples moved our bill due from the 3rd of the month to the 20th. believe it or not. So, I don't feel that we're a big enough township to be paying bills twice a month, that we should be able to do it all at the beginning of each month. So, back in 2020, we had a resolution for procedure to pay some payroll and that to get us to the next board meeting and emergency services, and I'd like to, I guess I forgot the answer to that question. Can I reinstate, or not reinstate, but I would like to make a motion to go back to this resolution 4/29/2020, so we can pay some bills and do payroll and only have a meeting like an hour before our regular meeting to approve all the bills.
I don't think that that's quite necessary. We passed the resolution, if we don't have to meet twice a month, that's not an issue. And we already had in place that payroll can be done. So,
But we
the
made-
payroll's not an issue, so the issue would be that we would just move to have one meeting a month to approve the bills, but we don't just pay a slew of bills and then audit them later. That makes no sense to me. A post-audit resolution, I never did it in business, I wouldn't do it here, because once you pay them, it's very difficult to get your money back, and that's why we went to the system we did go to.
Well, this was just the utility bills, electric and
Technically, this could be almost every bill of the township,
Right.
technically.
Including emergency expenditures up to $1,000.
well,
And
I don't even know why that was put there the first round. I mean, I don't know what an emergency expenditure would be, but,
well, if you blew a hot water tank and the fire department needs hot water, that would be an emergency expenditure.
well, the emergency expenditure here speaks of the health, safety, and welfare of the township. So I'm not sure hot water tank falls under that category.
If it was their hot water tank,
If it's required under health code.
Yeah,
that's,
okay.
it's the law.
Well, I'm gonna make a motion that we,
My question is though, we passed the other bill ordinance,
September 21.
September 21, which made this one obsolete, so.
no, this is a resolution. We made a motion. We
No.
didn't do a resolution. So technically, this resolution still stands.
Well, resolutions always stand until you have a new resolution.
And in 22, or 21,
So if in 21 there is a resolution that trumps this one, then you can't just put forth a motion to go back and supersede a resolution. But I guess that would be the bigger question is there an actual resolution?
No, it was a motion we made to,
'Cause we-
hold the second meeting.
we went through this once before. I would make a motion that we would have a bill pay meeting once a month. We would continue to pay all payroll, whether it's approved or not, because it's bi-monthly payroll that we do. So all payroll could be paid, but if we've adjusted the dates on the other items, then once a month we would get together on the second Monday, an hour before the meeting, and we'd approve all bills at that time,
Now,
at 6 p.m.
that said, if you are doing the entire month's bills, I don't know that an hour, I mean, that's a lot of bills. We've been doing significantly more time, twice a month. You know, I don't think you'd get through it in an hour, and if you scheduled it directly before the board meeting, you know, I mean, we'd end up having to wrap up because people would be here for the board meeting. I don't know that we'd get through them all that quickly.